My girlfriend made a tribute to all her ex-boyfriends during our wedding. I'm Norman, 29 years old, and my ex, Geraldine, is 27. We had been together for 3 years and, in theory, we were in the best moment of our relationship. At least, that's what I believed. We met at a gathering with friends. She was the cousin of a coworker. From the beginning, she struck me as a very cheerful woman, with an energy that filled any room. She was sociable, fun, and always had a smile that was contagious to everyone. I, on the other hand, am quieter, more reserved, the type who prefers to listen before speaking. Maybe that's what made us work. We were different, but we complemented each other well. During the first years of our relationship, everything was quite stable. We didn't have any major crises or serious arguments. Geraldine was affectionate, thoughtful, and talked a lot about the future. Very early in the relationship, she began to hint at the topic of marriage. At first, I thought she was just joking or daydreaming, but as time went on, she became more insistent. She said it was time to think about something serious, that she didn't want to waste more years without a defined path. I didn't feel pressured, but I was surprised. I always believed marriage would happen when we both felt it was the right time. However, Geraldine spoke about the topic with growing enthusiasm. One day, without warning, she showed me a list of possible wedding venues. I remember I laughed a little and told her, "I haven't proposed to you yet." She replied very seriously, "But you will." And she was right. Months later, during a dinner with her parents, I proposed. There were no fireworks or a movie-like production, just an intimate dinner and a ring. Still, she cried with emotion. It was one of the most sincere and happy moments I remember of us. From then on, it was all planning. We got married a year after that day. Geraldine wanted a big wedding with many guests, live music, and an elegant hall. I would have preferred something smaller, more intimate, but I agreed because I wanted to see her happy. Honestly, the planning was chaos. Time caught up to us, the budget stretched further than expected, and there were arguments over minimal things, like the color of the flowers or the guest list. Even so, I have to admit the result was impressive. The venue was decorated with warm lights, white and gold flower arrangements, and an arch of roses at the entrance that looked like something out of a romantic movie. Everything looked perfect. A few weeks before the wedding, we had a conversation that struck me as odd, though I didn't give it much importance at the time. We were at home reviewing the guest list. Geraldine was crossing off and adding names when she suddenly said, "Hey, would you be upset if we invited some of my ex-boyfriends?" I thought she was joking. I laughed and asked if she was serious. She nodded with total calmness. Yes, some of them were an important part of my life. I haven't seen them in years, but it would be nice to close those chapters, don't you think? I was speechless for a few seconds. "No, Geraldine," I replied. "It makes no sense to invite your exes to our wedding." She shrugged and looked at me with a smile that tried to be innocent. "Well, it wasn't a big deal. I just said it because I think it's a mature gesture. Besides, you can invite your exes too, if you want." I shook my head. "I won't be doing that, and I'd prefer you didn't either." She sighed, muttered an "okay," and didn't mention the topic again. Or so I thought. The wedding day arrived sooner than expected. I remember waking up that morning with a mix of nerves and excitement. My friends were with me at the hotel, helping me get ready. They joked around. We toasted with beer and talked about how quickly everything had happened. Meanwhile, Geraldine was in another room at the hotel with her bridesmaids. I didn't see her until the ceremony began. When she entered the venue, everyone fell silent. She wore a long, elegant white lace dress with a veil that fell to her shoulders. She looked beautiful, I can't deny it. She walked toward me with a huge smile, and in that moment, I felt it was all worth it. The altar was decorated with white flowers, the lights were dim, and the air smelled like jasmine. The guests were seated in perfectly ordered rows, and behind them, I could hear a string quartet playing softly. It was a dream scenario. During the ceremony, we exchanged vows. Hers were long and emotional. She said I had been her calm after the storm, that with me she had learned what real love was, and that she wanted to grow old by my side. I confess I was moved. She cried while she spoke, and when it was my turn, I tried to keep my voice steady, even though I was just as moved inside. After the vows came the signing of the registry, the applause, the hugs, the photos, and the typical rice toss. Everything went perfectly. The reception was also a success. The food was delicious, the music was lively, and people were laughing and dancing. I felt relieved, happy that everything had turned out so well after months of stress. Even my parents, who tend to be somewhat reserved, were enjoying themselves. I remember my mother whispering in my ear, "It's obvious she loves you. Look at the way she looks at you." And she was right. Geraldine was radiating happiness. During our first dance, she couldn't stop smiling. She had that look that mixes tenderness and triumph, as if she were living the exact moment she had always dreamed of. We danced to a slow song while people watched us. I felt like nothing could ruin that instant until it happened. As we danced, she leaned toward me and whispered in my ear, "Love, I have to do something. I hope you don't mind." Before I could ask what she meant, she let go of my hands and ran toward one of her friends, one of the bridesmaids. She looked nervous, but also excited. I thought it was some kind of surprise for the guests, maybe a song or a little speech. I stood in the middle of the room, watching as her friend dragged out a projector and connected it to a laptop. Geraldine took the microphone. Her voice sounded loud and confident, amplified by the speakers. "Attention everyone," she said with a smile. The conversations gradually died down. The guests turned toward her, curious. "I want to say a few words. Today is one of the happiest days of my life." She looked at me, and for a moment, I felt tenderness. "I love you, Norman. I want to live with you until we're 80 in a house full of children and grandchildren. But it's also worth mentioning the people who were part of our history and who, in some way, are the reason we are here today." There was some applause and murmurs of approval. I smiled, thinking maybe she would pay tribute to her parents or relatives who were no longer with us. However, something inside me tensed up. I don't know why, but I had a strange feeling, a sudden discomfort. The projector turned on. The white light illuminated an empty wall of the hall. The laptop showed a slide with a black background and gold letters. In the center, the title read, "Tribute to my ex-boyfriends." For a moment, I thought it was a joke. I stood still, waiting for everyone to laugh and for her to say it was some kind of icebreaker. But no, nobody laughed. There were only murmurs of bewilderment. I froze. I couldn't move. My smile vanished in a second. Geraldine was still standing at the microphone with that same happy, almost proud expression, while the slide remained projected. Some guests looked at each other, confused. Others covered their mouths, as if trying to hold back nervous laughter. I just felt a knot in my stomach. I didn't understand what was happening or why she was doing it. I remember with painful clarity the instant the first slide changed. On the screen appeared a photograph of a smiling young guy in a high school uniform. Below the image, in cursive letters, was the name Miguel. Geraldine looked at the projection with a nostalgic smile, then raised the microphone and began to speak. "This is Miguel," she said in a sweet voice, as if remembering an old youthful love. "We only lasted 6 months, but thanks to him, I discovered how to love. He was the first one to teach me what it really felt like to feel." Some guests let out a nervous laugh. I remained frozen. She continued. "Miguel was also the one who took my virginity. I remember it was painful, but he was very tender with me. Wherever he is now, I hold a huge affection for him." The silence that followed was absolute. Nobody moved. Not even the waiters knew what to do. I was still in the middle of the dance floor, staring at that image projected on the wall, feeling the blood drain from my body. I swear I wanted to move, but I couldn't. My muscles were so tense I could barely breathe. It was as if my body had betrayed me, as if I were watching everything from the outside without being able to intervene. My mind went blank. I didn't understand what was happening. It was all so absurd, so out of place, that my brain simply wasn't reacting. She moved to the next slide. This time, a photo of a man in a formal shirt taking a selfie in an office appeared. The title read, "Marty, my first job." Geraldine let out a small laugh before speaking. "Oh, Marty," she said playfully. "If he had done things right and hadn't cheated on me, he would be the one at this wedding with me." There was an attempt at a laugh from her, a forced sound that died in the air. No one else laughed. She, oblivious to the silence, kept talking. "Marty was the one who taught me everything. He taught me how to truly love and also taught me how to hate. It still hurts to talk about him, but in the end, we are here because of him." She paused briefly, looked at me, and added with a laugh, "Because he taught me very good techniques in bed that I later used with Norman, and that's why he fell in love with me." Ha ha ha. Nobody said anything. The silence was so heavy you could hear the hum of the projector. I felt an unbearable heat in my face, a mixture of shame, anger, and bewilderment. I couldn't believe I was hearing this, that she was saying it in front of all our friends, our families, my parents, my coworkers. Some guests looked away, others just stood motionless, unsure how to react. I could see my mother covering her mouth in horror and my father looking at the floor with an expression of total disbelief. I still wasn't moving, just listening, just watching until she changed the third slide. Now another man appeared. The text below said, "Sam, the impossible love from work." Geraldine took a deep breath, adjusted the microphone, and began to speak. "Sam. Well, he was," but she couldn't finish. Something inside me broke. "That's enough." I screamed with all the strength I had. The sound echoed through the hall. The music stopped. Everyone turned toward me. Geraldine was startled, lowered the microphone, and looked at me with an expression of surprise and confusion. "What's wrong, love?" she said, as if she didn't understand the gravity of what she was doing. "It's just a little tribute." "What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?" I repeated, my voice breaking with rage and shame. "Are you crazy? What the fuck are you doing?" I walked straight toward her without thinking, my body trembling, grabbed the projector, and threw it to the ground. The impact was sharp. The device shattered, the lamp went out, and the laptop it was connected to fell behind it, making a metallic noise as it hit the floor. Some guests screamed, others recoiled. "You're an idiot." I screamed at her, my voice torn. "How could you possibly think this was a good idea?" Geraldine froze. It seemed like only in that moment did she finally understand the magnitude of what she had done. I was breathing hard, my heart beating so fast it hurt my chest. I looked around and saw the horrified faces of everyone. My mother was crying. My father had his fists clenched. My friends looked at me, not knowing what to do. "This wedding is over," I said, raising my voice. "Get out, and everyone, get out of here." The silence lasted a few seconds until some people began to slowly get up. Others approached me, trying to calm me down. One of my best friends, Logan, ran to me and put his hand on my shoulder. "Bro, come on," he said softly. "Let's get some air." "Yeah." 3 other friends also came over to support him. My parents came toward me. I could barely stay on my feet. My legs felt weak, my vision blurry. As they tried to lead me away, Geraldine stepped toward me. Her face was pale, her eyes tearful, but she was still holding the microphone. "Love," she said, approaching. "I'm sorry, I didn't think it was such a big deal, but calm down, we can continue. I love you." My mother stepped between us. Her voice boomed through the hall. Stay away. Don't you dare come near him. Leave. Forget about my son forever. Geraldine ignored the warning, kept moving forward, and took my face in both her hands. Her fingers were cold, trembling. Love, please, forgive me. It was just a misunderstood gesture. Nothing more. We can continue the wedding. I forcefully pushed her hand away. You're a bitch, I said, my voice cracking. Go. She flinched, but instead of backing down, she replied with something that left me cold. But baby, if we had just invited them, none of this would have happened. At that moment, I heard a scream behind her. You heard him, bitch, leave. It was my older sister, Tina. I hadn't seen her approach, but suddenly she was there, walking with fast, furious steps. She grabbed Geraldine by the hair with force and spun her around. Before anyone could stop her, she slapped her so hard the sound echoed throughout the room. Geraldine fell to the floor, unconscious or stunned. Her parents, who hadn't said a word until then, rushed to help her, though they didn't try to defend her. They seemed just as confused and ashamed as everyone else. My friends grabbed me by the arms and pulled me out of the reception hall. A few meters from the main building, there was a small wooden cabin we had rented as a rest area for the bride and groom. They took me there, practically carrying me because my legs wouldn't respond. I remember fragments like flashes. Logan putting a bottle of water in my hands. My mother stroking my hair, repeating, "It's okay, son. It's over." My father talking to the others, asking everyone not to take photos, to please turn off their phones. I heard everything as if distorted, like I was underwater. The voices mixed together, distant. I could only see lights and shadows. I felt a tightness in my chest, my hands were numb, and every time I tried to speak, only a choked sigh came out. I don't know how much time passed like that. Maybe an hour, maybe two, until I could finally breathe more calmly. The party, of course, was over. The guests had left. My parents decided to take me home. I didn't argue, I just nodded silently. During the drive, I looked out the window without saying a word. The night was completely dark. My suit was sticking to my body, soaked in sweat. I felt a mixture of shame and emptiness so profound I could barely hold my head up. When we got home, my parents helped me inside. I sat on the sofa and just stared into space. It was all silent. Geraldine didn't call again that night, or the next day, and as I tried to sleep, all I could think about was that white screen with gold letters and the phrase that started it all. Tribute to my ex-boyfriends. I couldn't believe it had actually happened. It's been 3 days since that night, 3 days since my life changed completely. And although time seems to have passed, in my head, everything is still frozen in that moment, in that room lit by the projector, with all those faces looking at me and that absurd phrase on the screen. Tribute to my ex-boyfriends. I can't sleep well. Every time I close my eyes, I see Geraldine smiling with the microphone in her hand, talking about them as if it were normal, something nice. I wake up soaked in sweat, with my heart racing, remembering the humiliation, the silence, the feeling of being trapped in front of everyone, unable to move. I've cried more than I'd like to admit. Sometimes in silence, sometimes screaming in helplessness. It's hard for me to accept that the woman I was going to share my life with, the one I made plans with, the one I dreamed of having children with, was capable of doing something like that. I haven't gone to work. I called my boss the day after the wedding and asked for vacation time. I told him I needed time, that I was going through a complicated personal situation. He didn't ask for details, but from his tone, I knew he had already heard what happened. By now, probably everyone knows. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. My inbox is full of notifications from friends, co-workers, even acquaintances I barely see, all saying the same thing. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry it ended this way. I'll always be here to support you. Some messages came with screenshots or comments that I prefer not to open. I don't want to know what they're saying about me. I don't want to relive that night over and over. I decided to stay a couple of days at my parents' house. They insisted I stay longer, that I wasn't ready to go back alone. But after the third day, I felt I had to go back. Not out of strength, but because I needed to get on with my life, even if just little by little. I told them I would be fine, that I just wanted to rest in my own space. My mother hesitated, looked me in the eyes, and asked, "What if she shows up?" "She won't," I answered tiredly. She got the message. Or at least I thought so. When I got to my house, I noticed something strange right away. The door wasn't locked. My heart sped up. I thought maybe a friend or family member had come in to check that everything was okay, but as soon as I opened the door, the familiar scent of Geraldine's perfume hit my face. There she was, sitting on the living room sofa, wrapped in a blanket, with a bowl of popcorn on her lap and a movie playing on the television as if nothing had happened. When she saw me walk in, she smiled with that same naturalness that unnerved me so much. "Love," she said, getting up gently. "I've been waiting for you for days. Please, let's talk." I stood motionless for a moment. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or just turn around and leave. But the words came out on their own. "Get out. Get out of here." She took a step toward me, not losing her calm. "Love, we're alone now. You don't have to play the tough guy anymore. I know you don't want me to leave. You love me too." I just stared at her in silence. "Geraldine, you don't understand anything." My voice was shaking, not from fear, but from contained rage. "You destroyed me in front of everyone." She shook her head, moving closer. "It wasn't my intention to hurt you. This was just a consequence of your decisions. I just wanted to close the chapter, love." I had even already contacted some of my ex-boyfriends, and they had confirmed they would come. It was going to be something symbolic, something nice. I looked at her in disbelief. It was like listening to a complete stranger, someone disconnected from reality. "Are you crazy, Geraldine?" I said, taking a step toward her. "You're a crazy bitch, you have no brain. Your skull is empty. Did you really think that was a good idea?" She started to cry, but her tears didn't move me. "Love, I love you. Calm down, don't talk to me like that." She took another step and tried to touch my arm. "Look, let's relax. Let's go to bed and solve this fight the way we always liked to. You know, the best part of a lover's quarrel is making up." She said that with a shy smile and suddenly began to take off her clothes. First the sweater, then the blouse, and she took a step toward me, trying to hug me. I felt a deep disgust, a rejection I had never felt for anyone before. "You disgust me," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "I wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole. I don't know the repulsion I feel toward you, toward your body. I want you to go and never come back." She froze, clothes half off, looking at me with her eyes full of tears. "Don't say that," she whispered. "You don't mean it, I know. You're hurt, but you love me." I didn't respond. I grabbed her arm firmly and led her to the door. She tried to resist, but not forcefully, more with pleas. "Norman, please, don't do this. We can fix this, I swear." I opened the door and, without looking at her, gently pushed her outside. She stumbled a bit, turned toward me, her face streaked with tears. "Love, don't leave me like this. I love you. I love you." She banged on the door several times, calling my name between sobs. I could hear her voice breaking more and more until it finally faded away. I didn't open it. I didn't say anything. I just slid to the floor, my back against the door, listening to my own loud, chaotic heartbeat. I don't know how much time passed until everything went silent. Update. It's been 2 months since that day. I haven't heard from Geraldine again, not a call, not a message, not one attempt at contact. At first, I thought she would show up, that she would insist, that she would come to apologize or justify the unjustifiable. But no. She simply disappeared. And in a way, I'm grateful. Getting back into my routine hasn't been easy. People still look at me with pity when they see me on the street or at work. Some pretend they don't know anything, but their gestures give them away. I've had to listen to comments disguised as concern, phrases like everything happens for a reason, or at least you found out before you had kids. I appreciate the sentiment, but there's no possible consolation for something like this. Sometimes I think about how one person can destroy something so big in a matter of minutes. How one simple act, one whim, can erase years of trust, love, and respect. I don't hate her, not anymore, but I don't remember her fondly, either. When I think of Geraldine, I feel something akin to emptiness, as if it were someone else's story, something that happened to another person that I was simply told about. The house still has traces of her. A sweater in the closet, a forgotten perfume in the bathroom, a mug with her name on it. Sometimes I stop to look at those objects and wonder at what moment she became like that, when she lost her grip on what was right and what wasn't. Maybe I'll never understand. I've tried to occupy my mind with other things, work, the gym, going for walks, reading. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but little by little, life goes on, and although it still hurts, at least it doesn't paralyze me anymore. My parents are still worried, but they know I need space. My sister Tina calls me almost every day. She still regrets hitting Geraldine, although deep down, we all know no one judges her for it. I myself don't know if I would have done it differently. The truth is, that wedding was the end of more than just a relationship. It was the end of an illusion, of a version of myself that believed love was enough. Today, I know love isn't enough. You have to have respect, empathy, common sense, and, above all, boundaries. And when one person loses them, all that's left is the ruin of what could have been. I don't know if I'll ever get married again. I don't even know if I'll be able to trust like that again, but at least now I understand something I didn't before. Love isn't shown with grand gestures, or with pretty words, or with absurd tributes. Love is shown in the details, in consideration, in not humiliating the other person, in not using their trust as a stage to show off. Geraldine was the most painful mistake of my life, but also the greatest lesson. And although it still hurts to admit it, that wedding, as tragic as it was, marked the beginning of something new, my life without her.